What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Metal Maniacs Podcast. I'm your host, Jay Ingersoll, and I'm here with my co-host.
It's your boy Mod. Thanks for having me, Jay.
Anytime, my brother. Any Sunday.
I love it. Every Sunday. Fuck.
So happy New Year to everyone. Today is going to be the Album of the Year episode. You know, it's almost mandatory if you're doing anything with content and around metal. So we're going to go over our albums of the year. I will go in order. We will volley back and forth and go from there. But I do want to say this before we get into this. Everybody that supported the podcast, everybody that came on the podcast in 2023, we got it rolling at the end of 2023. Thank you so much. If you subscribed, if you liked any of that stuff, we really appreciate it. The podcast is growing. 2024 looks to have some good stuff in store already for us. Do want to get some big hitters on the podcast. That's my goal this year, and just keep growing this thing.
Hell yeah.
And keep having fun and worshiping metal on Sundays and other days if it's necessary.
Yep.
So
I'll do Wednesday night metal mass if I have to.
yeah. So that's just one thing I wanted to say before we get going. We're going into 2024 now. New year, new goals. Just keep this thing going and keep being consistent. And I just really like the progress that we've made. And we're not doing this for the subscribes and the likes, but if you enjoy our content, that means the world to me, and I know it means the same to you, right?
I appreciate it. I get a kick out of it.
Yeah. So it's cool if you like the video. If you gave us a thumbs down on a video,
At least
cool.
you reacted.
Yeah, exactly. And at least you watched it and took the time to do it. But got some good plans for 2024. Thanks for sticking with us. We're going to keep doing this whether you like it or not. So turn it off right now if you don't like it. I don't give a shit. So.
No, come back.
But yes. So the mandatory album of the year listens.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm going to say this real quick before we even get into this. 2023 music from 1995 listens that we've done, albums of the year, right? Like, because we've been listening to music for so long. Such a different landscape that we're in.
Oh, God.
So many bands. Because as I was doing my list, more just kept coming up, more kept coming up. Like, you could go all fucking day. And that's not even... Some of these bands on this list aren't even really, like, underground bands. Like, you could go on and on and on because we can just release music now in such a fashion that it's just an overwhelming amount of music.
As I was listening to a few of these newer albums, you know, and as they're closing out, then the next, you know, suggestion comes up, and it is endless. I'm like, oh, I've never heard of that band. That artwork looks cool. Let's give it a go and just roll into something and give it a minute or two and decide if you want to carry on with it. But yeah, you're right. There's album on top of album almost every day, it feels like. And there's band after band after band. It's not like, you know, earlier in life where, you know, you had to wait for a band to put out a new album for 2 years. You don't have to wait for shit anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. Every week it's something.
You wake up, roll over, and put on a new album every day if you want. It's beautiful. But it's overwhelming at the same time.
Yeah, it's good and bad, right?
Yeah, sure. I can't listen to everything, even all the good stuff that people suggest to me.
Oh, yeah,
Have you heard this?
No.
I missed it, and I know it exists. Fuck. You know, like, I want to, but we'll get there.
I will say that about this podcast, though. It's making me be able to, like, open that door again and take the time to listen to music. Because that, for a long time, music's kind of just was something that's by the wayside. I listen to podcasts or whatever. But now that I'm doing a podcast about extreme metal, it's imperative that I listen to as many albums as I can. So next year, with that in mind, I'm going to keep up on it a little more instead of trying to cram it in at the end of the year, because I'm sitting here pounding out 4 albums extreme metal of the day, and then I'm going home beating my head on the counter because I just got to get the extreme metal out of my head for like a few seconds before I go try to consume 4 more albums the next day just to say that I listened to them.
Yeah, and I did like the same thing. You know, we're at the end of the year, and I crammed in, you know, 3-4 albums a day just to make sure I was getting in that full intentional listen, and then I could speak to it with insight and not bullshit you guys. So when we talk about at least the top 10 albums or so, those are going to be albums that I'm certain we have had given intentional listens, probably numerous intentional listens up to this point.
Yes.
Because whatever you're seeing out here, if you're watching, I've got like 7 new albums from 2023 laid out on the table, and each one of these albums has had numerous spins in my ears. Whatever I'm doing, like walking the dog, taking the shower, getting ready, driving the car, or my favorite, intentional listening.
Yes.
What is that, Nick? Well, that's when I basically turn out most lights, and I sit in the dark-ish, and maybe some light to read lyrics or just read them on the screen, you know, and I only listen to the music. I mean, it's weird for people. They need more sensory action. You know,
Mhm.
they need their eyes
Oh,
doing
yeah.
something, or they need their hands doing something, or they need their mouth doing something. I can sit and listen to music and spin in my chair.
Yeah.
Like, I don't really need much. So for me, I've given all of these like exactly that pretty much, or doing some homework or something, but more intentional. I'll stop what I'm doing to go, oh, that fucking riff, and just sit there and literally appreciate it and imagine it going off live, you know? So,
Yeah, I think that's very important is the intentional listening.
yeah.
Because you can't just put anything on in the background because you're going to miss 75% of what's going on.
Yeah.
Because I've done that with some albums, even lifting. Like I'm very intent on listening to the album while I'm lifting, but like sometimes you're just struggling to get that set or whatever, and it's just then noise,
Yeah.
some kind of white noise in the background
Right.
at that point. So it's a very like put the headphones on and just really crank it up, feel the riffs, and let's go from there.
Yeah. I don't think people do enough of that, and that's one thing that I hope we can encourage people to do while we're talking about music. Like, after people are done listening to us talk about music, flip an album on. Probably not going to take up the greater part of your day, 30 to 60 minutes, of an intentional listen, or just do like I do and walk the dog or go for a run or something.
Mhm.
I think those constitute intentional listens because the activity involved isn't like demanding of your brain and your attention.
You
So
can process it.
yeah, I think that. And the other thing I would like people to do, if they're listening to this podcast, is actually buy music. I mean, God forbid you spent a few dollars on something that you enjoy, right?
Right.
Like, I mean, I know it's free, and nobody wants to consider it stealing because it's
Yeah.
basically free. You can get on any platform and just listen to it. But when people do something nice, I usually say thank you. And in the world of art, when people present awesome art, my thank you is in dollars.
Yeah.
And I think that people are, well, Nick, I can't afford to. That's fine. Do something else. There's many ways to support artists besides spending your money on them and their merch. But for me, disposable income, bam,
Yeah.
right there on the
CD.
table. I fucking love it, man. I can't help it. You guys ain't got to buy plastic. I would buy your streams, like
Buy a shirt.
buy something just because
Buy a sticker.
if you like that band, you cannot reasonably expect them to continue if they do it for free.
You're right.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
So-
yeah, art is hard. Right.
art costs money.
Yep.
Like music, it comes out of thin air, but you need instruments to make that happen.
And it takes a lot of time, energy, and money
Yep.
to make these records.
Yeah.
For you to listen to them
Yeah.
for free.
Yeah. So just consider. I'm not trying to guilt anybody.
Right.
Just consider
I get
it,
it.
man, because these things are awesome in my opinion. Buy a vinyl.
Yeah.
Buy a cassette. I'm
Yeah.
not going to judge you. It's
Right.
fine. You're buying it. It's cool.
Go to a show.
Yep.
Get a
Yeah.
ticket. Do
That's-
something to support that music.
Yeah. And I don't think album sales really help in terms of like the band's financial bottom line.
Probably not.
We know that.
Yeah.
But it does help in other ways that help the band.
Yes.
I mean, they're going to want you to go to the show and buy the shirt. Amen that. And I say do that primarily, but
Yeah.
also it wouldn't hurt to buy the music just so that whoever's supporting that band, their record label or whatever, can say, you guys are killing it.
Yeah.
We're gonna lob some more money on you,
Yep.
so you can go out there and tour again and keep making your money, keep doing your life. So yeah, buy music if you're inclined, because these things are fun to open up and look at too.
And it's also one of those things where, like, I go to Nick's house. Oh, I haven't heard this record yet. Good thing you had a representation of
Yeah.
it sitting here,
Yep.
and you can tell me about it. And now maybe I want to grade it.
Yeah, it's a
you
great
know?
conversation piece, especially because I like to display them, as you can see. And if you come over to my house, my CD rack isn't just the sidewall here. You can see art facing you most here and there.
Yeah.
And I use it as a conversation piece for people. I set it out intentionally like that. I don't hide my CDs like I'm embarrassed of them.
Right.
I only hide the ones that I'm embarrassed of.
Of having.
We don't talk
Yeah.
about that.
Yeah.
That box over there that says bad CDs, we don't talk about it. But
So I will say this episode might be kind of long, so please stick with us to
it's
the
a
end.
whole year of music to talk about.
Exactly. My intention with this podcast, though, today is hopefully something on this list that you haven't heard of. I already see a few on your list that I'm like, well, maybe I got to visit that. But I'm hoping this will strike up a conversation with our fellow metalheads, or let them go find something new to listen to that they may enjoy.
Yeah,
So
and
with this
also-
conversation.
Also, throughout this podcast today on this episode, I think, as I do every week, but again today, probably going to try to throw some things out there for your non-metalhead friends. That's what I do over here, is I try to say, well, I know it's metal, but maybe they'll like this one because it's not too extreme. We like a lot of extreme stuff, but me also, most people, I like to find that middle of the road sometimes with some of these albums, so I'll be presenting some of those today to people so that, if you got like a non-metalhead friend or a friend who's on the fence about metal, they're either way, I'll have some things that we can talk about today, and hopefully people will be sharing those albums with their friends who are somewhat on the fence and not ready for a cattle decapitation.
Right. Yeah.
But we have a lot to talk about today.
Cool. So the way we're going to do this is we're going to start on my album. I'm going to go from 10, 9, 8 all the way to 1.
Okay.
And I will talk about my 10th album. And like I said, I noticed the cool thing about this episode is our lists aren't the same.
Right.
So you're going to get a lot out of both of our top 10. And then assuming we have time, or maybe we'll do a part 2, I want to talk on some other albums that didn't necessarily make my top 10,
Sure.
but all these albums are worth. I took the time to listen to them, so I want to take at least a few seconds to minutes to talk about each one of them, just so people can kind of get a barometer of what's going on. Also, one last thing before we get into this, music, it's all subjective, right? It's
100.
my taste, it's your taste. So we're going on our ideas and what we enjoy. So take it as you will, because the listener may not like the same stuff that we listen to.
Yeah.
So we're trying to educate you in the best way possible.
These are the albums that found me. Okay, these are the ones that washed up on my shores, and I picked them up and I experienced them, and I now am going to turn around and share them with you and give you my opinions of them. There are so many new albums, as we just discussed. You can't listen to them all. In fact, there are some really great albums or just good bands that put out albums this year. I haven't had a chance to get to listening to them. Some of them long in the tooth bands.
Yep.
They've been around since the 90s or so. I already know what they sound like, and I'm happy for them putting out new albums. But my intent, especially for this episode and the end of this year, was just to listen to new bands, newer albums, or things that I felt like called to me a little bit more than reaching back to something that I kind of have an idea of. And I'm not going to name drop anybody because we are going to talk about some of those bands, and I am going to show them love, and you're not going to know that I was maybe missing out on their album or something. So, there's a lot of opinions that are about to fly here. So be gracious, everyone.
Yeah, and take it for what you will.
Yep.
So top 10 album. And some of these albums, I'm going to say this. I know my number 1 is number 1 and my number 2 is number 2.
Right.
But a lot of these could probably be interchanged.
Absolutely.
But I'm just going with my top 10. So I'm going with Frozen Soul, Glacial Domination.
Oh, okay.
So classic old school death metal done the right way.
All right. I'm going to notate these. So if you guys see me typing over here, I'm just copying what Jay said. So actually, he's got it on this list. I won't type. Go ahead, Jay.
So this album has it's chock full of grooves and riffs that make you bang your head. It's like a callback to Bolt Thrower almost.
Okay.
So great songwriting, vocal patterns, stuff that stick in your head when you're done listening to it.
Mm-hmm.
It has great production, and it has some cool like synthwave breaks in atmosphere. So it's not just 45 minutes of like old school death metal.
Guitar, bass, drums, vocals.
And my note is this album is cold.
I love it. Fucking ice cold, baby.
But everything about what they do, they like bring snow machines on stage and everything. Like just everything they do is like the Frozen Soul, and it's all about like these. You just see like these frozen like armies like attacking, and just love this band. They've come across my radar this year, and I just love this album. So,
first of all, I love the band name, and I can't say that I've heard them. Which is totally weird. I feel like maybe talked about them somewhere along the way on the show.
Yeah, I think this is one of the bands that I've like sent one of the 2,000 texts this year with a picture of the album on and said, Nick, listen to this.
Yeah, and I'm almost wondering if I hadn't maybe heard them on like Liquid XM metal on the satellite dish. So, because I get a lot of random stuff coming through the satellite dish that way. But I love the band name. I love the description of, I love your description of their work. So that's one that I didn't get a chance to even consider listening to. Didn't even really know. It wasn't on my radar at all. But your description of it makes me want to, throw it on right now today and catch up, before close of day.
Dude, I loved it because we're having this resurgence of this like old school death metal. It's like these hardcore kids playing death metal almost because they'll have like some of the breakdown type stuff. But this is just a callback to like us riding in the red Clifford, putting the tapes in, the 6 feet under, all that. But I mean, this is a little more advanced because it's 2023, right?
Production values are up.
Everything, like even the riffs or whatever, are still awesome, even though they're kind of on the basic side. They're not a tech death metal band or anything.
Yeah.
but just a great headbanging record, man. You just want to headbang. You just want some good, like, nothing you have to think too closely about or listen too closely about. But when the song's done, you're like, still singing the hook. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, like, just one of those albums that's just a good album.
So thanks for that one, Jay. I'm going to have to check out Frozen Soul with their album. Say again the title.
Glacial Domination.
Glacial Domination.
Yeah.
Thank you. I almost went with global. That's not good. Yeah, I'll have to check that one out. So do you want to volley this back to me now? Yeah.
We'll just go back and forth.
So mine aren't necessarily in like any value rated order, but I'm just going to go with the number 10 spot that I have listed on my document here, which is Currents and their album, The Death We Seek. Been hip to these guys only as of this year. I don't know how they came into my world. Jason, the guitarist from Shadow of Intent, was it Chris?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's in this band as well. And he is a monster. He's got to be like one of my favorite guitarists, bar none, right now, just actively out there. Like both of his bands, and I don't know if there's a third or a fourth that he's in, but right now with me, he's at Can Do No Wrong. And I like to watch the playthrough videos of this guy and just see how much his life is in music. The wall of guitars, the thousands of dollars of equipment, the playing through the song, and he's perfect.
Yeah.
And so Currents of Death We Seek as an album, I have a little bit written down here. I want to read it for you guys. So to me, this album is absolutely pummeling deathcore, or as I like to call them, death chorus. I love the vocals. I love the hooks that stay in my head. Very tasteful vocals across the board. The guitars are choice, tasty, melodic. They got a lot of cyclical tapping melodies. Excellent guitar leads where they decide to utilize them. This album didn't have a ton of guitar solos. It had a few, and that's perfect because we're not in the Eddie Van Halen era anymore, and we don't need to see a lot of guitar solos. What we want is just something that makes sense in our brain when we hear it, and for them to segue from their musical passages into a solo that makes sense for the song, brilliantly done, well played. They've got, punishingly crushing rhythms. A lot of it can be ambient in the background with the atmosphere and stuff, but when they lay down like a thick fat rhythm, you feel it. Like it's so heavy. One of the heaviest albums just in terms of that chug right now that's on the table. I got Steamroller of an album, great melody, top-notch musicianship all around. They got great use of mid-tempo pace, which I thought was cool because it didn't feel too slow, like it was dragging, and I didn't have to have that grinding blast in my face.
Yeah.
They were right where I like it, where I can groove like almost the entirety of this album. And they've got really creative breakdowns. They don't sound like a typical hardcore breakdown, which is, I don't know. I think breakdowns are pretty basic at times, but these guys, they just do something they give it a little something. They sprinkle a little spice on their breakdowns. I think they're a little more creative. So great use of peaks and valleys throughout the album, just even besides the choruses. The Death We Seek does a great job of flowing and staying consistent musically from song to song. It breathes very well, pristine production, and honestly, a gem of an album that I really want to turn people onto, which is why I'd speak to it first instead of last. Currents, The Death We Seek. Have you had a chance to listen to any of it, Jay?
I have not. So this is one that will be on my list to listen to.
Yeah.
I don't know how it flew under the radar, but of course, with all the music that's out there, it's just hard to get all the albums in.
Totally agree.
I would think this would be one that I would, because I love Chris's work as well. I've listened to Currents before because when I started getting into Shadow of Intent, of course, I wanted to seek out everything the guy was doing.
Yeah.
So I liked what I heard before, but we go back to the intentional listening. I've never done that, and I didn't know they had a new album out. So this is definitely one I'll probably be listening to tomorrow.
Yeah,
sure.
I definitely give it a chance. Tell me what you think of it. I thought they did a great job. The guy's voice is pretty cool. Like, he may be not the greatest singer, but he does sing, and I do like it. So I'm just go with that. It's like nobody's saying Dave Mustaine's a great singer.
Right.
But some people actually like his voice. It is what it is.
It works.
Yeah, and this guy's not Dave Mustaine. I'll promise you that. He's probably better than that. Vocally, he's better than Dave.
Don't tell Dave.
Yeah, wow, Dave. I love you, Dave. Sorry, stay playing.
Yeah. Don't tell Dave.
So what's moving up the list for you,
Okay.
Jay?
So we're coming in at number 9, Periphery, Gent is Not a Genre.
I love these guys' albums titles.
So This album's just a banger.
Yes, it is.
Periphery has been, we've talked about them before on the show
Yep.
for, I think it was the episode that you said a band that you may have slept on,
Yes.
that you started to become more and more aware of.
Yep.
Same with these guys. You could probably go back to that episode and listen to the synopsis of what we both said about that, but these guys started to become a band I like more and more along the way. I always thought the singer kind of might have been in the wrong band at times. It sounded like that, but seeing them make this album and then listening to it as well, like giving it intentional listening, there's, you know, gent qualities, but they are so impressive technically. Like the stuff that they come up with is so off the wall, chord shapes, different tunings. They are just a band that is like pushing the envelope all the time.
So one real quick, while I'll jump in, the way that they write their riffs, they're really long. Like the phrases, the passages, like the riff, and that's something that Brent was saying from Dies when we had him on the show. He likes to write those long riffs that, you know, they don't repeat
tack it on.
Yeah, and I think they do a really great job of that. And like a lot of progressive bands, I think they'll not only do that, but then when you hear that come back around, they put a little twist on it too, just to give the listener something new every time. So more about them, Jay, what do you tell me?
I mean, they have so much more to offer than just gent and technicality, though, because there's so many bands doing that. Like, they have great layers. They've started adding more and more layers to their music, which would be program stuff that, like, Misha does. And even though the songs are pretty long, and sometimes for me, especially nowadays, that's a little much. Like, a 9-minute song, I'm kind of good on that. But they have every part makes sense. So every new part that comes along, even though it's a long song, like, you're like, oh, another sweet fucking part, right?
Yeah.
So, like, that helps keep you intrigued. Also, when you're done listening to it, there's 3 or 4 hooks that stuck in my head that I'm singing afterwards because of the choice of the vocals, the way they wrote the songs. And to me, these guys just keep getting better and keep exploring their sound while staying periphery all the time. Top-notch production, top-notch musicians. These guys have really etched in stone being an amazing band in my book. And this album that's why it made my top 10 list of this year, because it's just a great album from front to back. They did an amazing job.
Agreed. I've had a chance to listen to this whole album. It came out early in the year, so I haven't listened to it intentionally in a while now, but I still do get a kick out of songs like Wildfire. So that's one that has a great hook. It stays in your brain. It's got a lot of the other musical passages in it that are not gent. I think it's got a couple of like orchestral type piped in musical passages and just a fun listen where you're going from metal to then all of a sudden you're hearing like a classical piece, but it's all very like minor and diminished and moody. Just like the album art, you know, that purple black feel, like it just feels macabre in ways. And this is a band who I lumped in with just like progressive metal in the past, and sure they are that, if you will. And when I say that, I just feel like sometimes progressive metal is just not heavy enough for me. They do everything else that metal does, but with no teeth. They're just gumming on me the whole time. You know, just like I just cannot. Some like progressive musicians are great, and I love the virtuosity that they bring to their craft, but just hit me over the head with a couple of open notes here and there that are pummelingly heavy. I need it like to make everything else make sense, but they do a good job of being heavy and progressive and melodic and writing very interesting songs that are not formulaic necessarily. I mean, they have callbacks. But they introduce all kinds of new things along the way. So I say great choice of an album this year. If you guys are in the mood for something progressive and heavy, gent is not a genre by Periphery. You can't go wrong.
And a few of these other albums I'm going to talk about on this list are like, okay, staples in the extreme metal scene or heavy metal scene, if you will. These guys stand on their own pillar. Like, there's nothing that sounds like them. If there is, it's because people are trying to sound like them, right?
Sounds about
like
right.
They're like a Tool or Between the Bear to Me, where they've etched their own way in metal, and they're not trying to do anything that everybody else is doing. They're doing their own thing, and they do it damn good.
Agreed. So I've got one to bounce off of you. I've got a feeling you don't know this one as well because I haven't heard you say anything about it, but it's going to be one that I think you'll enjoy if you get around to it. And I did a little a review of it in the paragraph form here, so I'll read from that and I'll speak to it freely. But the band is Orbit Culture, and the album is called Descent. And the first words I've got here are Dante's Inferno with a drum machine. Just let that roll around in your head for a minute. Yeah, that's what this album is to me. It's like Fear Factory came to the party. This album happened. But that doesn't even really begin to describe it as effectively as I'd like. You know, it is punishingly heavy. It's got that stomp beat, that like they are just going to war as Vikings here. It's like Andrew WK, but with blast beats here and there. Like it's hard to describe, but it's got that Swedish death metal vibe.
Okay.
But it also feels very machine-like and mechanical in ways.
Okay.
I love it. It's got major chuggy riffage on this thing. Like these boys, they're angry. There's an anger in this band that I think is unlike maybe Vexed, but there is anger in this band that I fucking love.
Okay, the first part of the explanation, I didn't want to hear it. Now you're talking.
No, there is some.
Now you're speaking my language.
And so there's definitely anger there. You're gonna get it, but there's atmosphere with the keyboards. There's second guitar ambience, and as the name implies, you know, melody is the name of the game. But heaviness is also a virtue with the Swedes, as it were. And these guys celebrate 10 years of being a band with this album, and I say it's really good. Like for 10 years of work to be at this point, they've done a great job. They experimented with a variety of vocals. The main Fry is very forceful. It comes out like kind of a mid, but he's got powerful lungs.
Nice.
And he's consistent with it. But you know, and then on the mid lower register, I would say, and they did a lot of things to break up the main Fry and the heaviness of the music to make it a very captivating listen. And they're the type of band I'd love to see make their way to the States to play at a venue near us. They're super tight. I love the depth and the experimentation. So I know I'm like hitting you with like, what is this? It does sound like drum machiney. Like the drums, they're not like a jazz drummer ringing bells and whistles up top, you know? It kind of sounded on the drum front like a little bit more straightforward. No diss on that drummer. He's a battery back there. Like he's going in like nonstop. Same as like Fear Factory. I tried to paint that picture of the drum work.
Yeah.
But the guitar work, you know, it's melodic in ways, but it's not like that twin guitar melody, right? So expect there to be layers of atmosphere, a lot of Fry vocal. They did some clean vocals too. They did a lot of things that I didn't see coming. I thought this was going to be a little bit more narrow in its presentation, given the few singles that I heard. But man, as this album was going on, I was like, man, they really went there. They really threw another new thing at the wall. They didn't write the same song 10, 12 times in a row.
Okay.
I promise you that. But all of them are heavy.
Nice.
And they have great pockets of atmosphere and melody. So Orbit Culture with Descent, give it a shot. They're from Sweden, and they rip.
Cool. I've never heard of the band before.
Sure. Yeah.
Except reading it on this. So how did you come across this band? Like
on the satellite dish in my car.
Okay.
Yep. Pretty
sure. So they came across, you started digging into it, and then it became one of your best albums of the year. That's how good it is.
Yeah. I mean, I had heard the song. They had, I think, something from the North or something. With the song titles, I'm terrible.
Yeah, not worried about it. We don't need to go into that.
So, but it just kept Vultures of the North or something. Anyway, it just kept playing, and I'm like, man, every time the song comes on, I'm like, turn it up.
Okay.
And it's one of those where I take a picture of it on the dashboard on my phone if I can. I'm like, I got to remember it, you know, for later. And then finally, I scrolled through my phone, and all of those pictures that I took of the dashboard, I went through and I listened to like more and more and more of those songs and those bands' albums. And Orbit Culture Descent was one that really just jumped out at me.
Cool.
So I got lucky. Again, washed up on my shores, picked it up, and I actually enjoyed it.
Cool.
And now I'm recommending it to others.
Hell yeah. So that's another one that I'm definitely going to listen to. So thank you for that.
Yeah, let me know what you think, Jay.
Yeah, I will, for sure. All right. Number 8 on my list.
Go for it.
We're going for The Dying Fetus, Make Them Beg for Death. So keeping it to extreme metal, I mean, that's just who I am, right? I mean, this is where I'm at. Overall, just a great album. You get Fetus in 2023 all the way. It's the same Fetus you've known and grown and loved, but great production. If I was nitpicky, the guitars are a tad loud. I'd like the drum mix like kind of pounded a little bit better. And I covered that in the weekly releases we did back in September because we did that small special episode on weekly releases. But this album is technical, tight, and groovy. It's what you get from Dying Fetus. And there is no song structures, but they never really go into song structures. I had the fortune of seeing them live in October. But the musicianship is top notch and just death metal rules. That's
Yeah.
all I got to say about it, because it's just one of those things where it's not for everybody, but it's an album that you can't deny, and it's just there, and it's just death metal, man. If you like death metal, you want technical, and kudos to these guys for being a 3-piece and just bringing the heat. Like, especially like hearing it on the album's one thing, because you can take takes and you can punch in parts, but seeing it live and then seeing him singing and doing all this tapping while he's singing and all these technical guitar parts, and it sounds like there's 5 guys up there and there's only 3, and so that's a reason why that album kind of pushed up, because these guys are just proficient and freaking awesome and heavy as shit too.
Yeah.
So
I've had a chance to listen to some of the new Dying Fetus. It's crossed my desk, if you will, and it is Dying Fetus, as you state. I mean, if you've heard them before, you're getting another batch of it, and it sounds pretty good to me. The thing for me is, as you say, they're like straight death metal. I don't feel like there's a lot of melody. There's not a lot of melody going on here at all,
no,
if any.
not really.
I mean, they play well. Obviously, they're like top tier musicians. They're like S-tier musicians. I mean, I feel like I've seen the bass player do bass sweeps. I mean, what the fuck is that?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, this guy's a monster. So these guys are incredible musicians. I've heard it. It's a little bit on the atonal side, or maybe it sounds like maybe a little bit slam or deathcore to me. I don't know if it's not slam, but they just are like
they've always got the slamming parts.
They groove, they grind. I like them. I go and see them. I know Jay loves them. So, if you guys like death metal, unrelenting, blasting, grinding, grooving, slamming, you're going to get that out of this album. For me, the only thing that like takes away from Dying Fetus for me is that vocal. He stays in that lower guttural like almost all day. And for some people, they love that. Like, they love that low guttural thing. That's the vocal that resonates with them. For me, I like more that banshee scream, that high pitch. I like to have a vocalist just stay in that higher register. It just kind of like sounds better to me in my ears. That's not really that's not enough of a knock to say like they're no good or I don't like them. That's not what I'm saying at all. If the other guy or one of the other guys could do vocals and back them up with some more,
they do
vocals. Do they get that high register?
It's not like super high, but the bass player does more of like a mid range, and then sometimes he'll layer it and it's like a little bit higher or whatever. The guitar player, I can't think of his name. Oh, John. He does stick it up.
Yeah, all day. And it's so for me, I can have fun with it. I can definitely appreciate it when it comes on, especially if I need to get somewhere quick. I just pin the pedal to the floor listening to Fetus. So yeah, I've heard it. It's good. Oh, I think it's my turn.
You're next.
I naturally segue into what I like now.
It's all good.
So for me, we've talked about this one a little bit, and I think it's going to be something that we're going to see a whole hell of a lot more of going forward in 2024. I feel like we're only scratching the surface with this next band, but I think when we had our buddy John Roan on here to talk about him, he was on to something, and I think we are all going to find out what he was on to. I so appreciate John for bringing their band name up on the show. Kudos to him. First mention on that. I didn't get a chance to, but I had heard of them. So I'm going to keep that little fact out for everybody to know. I had heard of this band before John, but I probably wasn't as fully immersed in them as John. And that band is Black Braid. Black Braid 2 is the album. And this is like a folk black metal. And I don't know that people are ready to accept that just on the name of the genre alone. Man, what beautiful guitar work from this guy. I can't pronounce his name. Not going to try. Don't even have it in front of me. But the acoustic guitar arrangements are so beautiful. And he accompanies them with like a flute at times. Mm-hmm. All right, so Nick, this ain't metal. Wait for it. All they're doing is setting the table with the melody for you. And he'll play a 2, 3, 4 minute like acoustic intro piece. And then that same melody's coming back at you with the electric guitars. And now a 10, 11, 12, 13 minute long song, and they might revisit some of those acoustic bits within that song, but this was almost like a spiritual journey to go on. This was not just putting on a metal album for the sake of listening to metal. This was more. This was so almost beyond musical for me. This was so good. I love the titles of the songs. An example, Moss Covered Bones on the Altar of the Moon. What a cool title. I just want to read the lyrics now. What is he talking about? Where's he going with this? that just screams to be listened to. It's 13 minutes. It's a story. Like I don't know if people want to hear a 13-minute song, but if there's one to listen to, it's that. I promise you. I love it. I love the extension of great melody and simple chord progression. This guy's not like a virtuoso on the guitar.
Oh yeah,
He's
seen, solid though.
Yeah, he's tight. He does great work. I love that he has his style, and that's what it is. What it is. This guy's not trying to be flashy at all. So, you got simple chord progressions. They go hand in hand, minutes on end. They're very repetitive, and the drums do make the subtle changes to accent progress within the song. So just like using that riff, but then building on it with the drums. So it'll start acoustic, go into the electric part, stay what it is, but then just battery drums on top of you. I love the use of the various folk instruments I talked about, the acoustic guitar, the flute. It's a special album. It honestly feels spiritual if you're so inclined. Yeah, Black Braid 2, a little bit different, long songs. I think I got it in the mail yesterday. I had been listening to it for a while. But
is that this one?
Yep. So
cool artwork too.
Yeah, John mentioned them. I don't know if you've had a chance to listen to any of it at all, Jay. Yeah,
I have. So
okay.
I really like this band a lot.
Good.
I listened to them after the episode that John was on.
Yes.
Didn't realize this was a 2023 release, or else it probably would have snuck onto my list.
Right.
With a more intentional listening.
I hope it is. I'm pretty sure it is.
The only thing that for me that was it was kind of repetitive. But
totally.
But the melody was so good that you could. It didn't seem like it was repetitive for that long. You know what I mean? Like it was such a good melody that it just kept going and kept.
Yeah, no, those melodies
kept going and kept going.
Yeah.
But it was just so good that it was like, oh, I can keep listening to this.
That's how I felt about it.
Really liked it. I think it is a great staple for like new age black metal.
Yeah,
I love his take on it because he's an Indian guy, right?
Yeah,
and
native.
That's kind of like the folklore and all that.
Yeah,
and when you say it's a flute, I think it's supposed to be like an Aztec death whistle. So just
are you serious?
Yeah,
he's seriously saying this. Okay, that's not a joke. I laughed. It's not a joke. Fuck.
No,
that's the coolest instrument I've ever heard of.
Yeah. So I believe that I could be out of line when I say this, but me doing some research into this band after the fact or whatever, like listening to an interview or whatever, that's what that's supposed to be a take on or whatever. So like, yeah, it sounds like a flute, but like the actual instruments.
Okay, thank you for that.
Yeah. So, but
makes it
cool.
Better.
Yeah. I mean, what do you expect? Indian black metal, you're going to have some Aztec death whistle on there.
Yeah,
you know?
absolutely.
So, and stay true to the heritage. Really like that. Because
Yes.
you say folk black metal, which...
That almost could imply like European.
Right, exactly. It's like the... Like, it's
Yeah.
not that kind of shit. You
You're
know what
right.
I mean?
You're right.
Whereas like early Demu was like kind of got some folk type shit in there.
Yeah.
This really isn't that, but I see what you're saying
Yeah.
because it's like heritage black metal almost.
Yeah. And we are correct in calling it like a form of black metal, correct?
Oh,
like,
yeah,
it
yeah, for
probably
sure.
beyond all things.
Yeah.
But and people think of black metal, they're going to think of like Emperor, and again, this is where and things of the like, Dark Throne. We're kind of far removed from that style of black metal.
Yes.
So this is why we have done like the genre episode to help you guys understand when we say these things. Like we're not introducing new terms to you now. You can go back and find that episode and where we talk about all these different genre breakdowns, and that's why I put those words in there today so that you'll know what to expect. Like that folk instrumentation is in there. It's more native, as Jay has stated. It doesn't sound like a Celtic folk.
Yes.
It sounds different, but I'm telling you, it's beautiful for music lovers. It's beautiful for metalheads. It's great. You're going for a ride on this one. I loved it, man.
Yeah, don't get turned off with the black metal moniker with this band.
Yeah.
Because he does wear like the corpse paint sometimes.
Yeah.
I've seen him with that. And some of the minor chord progressions and the way the music's laid out definitely could be black metal, but it's not the black metal that you could think of as Norwegian black metal like you just alluded to or whatever. But I still to me, it's in the black metal category.
Yeah, absolutely.
It definitely is.
Yeah, absolutely.
So.
And very, very melodic, very fun journey to be on. I can't recommend that one enough. The placement on the list means nothing. I just wanted to talk about them as soon as possible.
Cool.
I just highly recommend Black Braid 2. You guys are going to love it.
Okay, so my turn. We're getting into... This is going to be a long episode because we're only on number 7 right now, so this might have to be a 2-parter, bro.
That's all good. I talk music all day.
So, for me, it's Suffocation. Hymns of Apocrypha. Crippa? I don't know how to say that. I was like, every time I had to like put that down, I'm like, or like write it down.
Yeah, making up a pronunciation for it.
Yeah, I was like, I'll make something up. But we all know by this point in the show, I don't know how to pronounce anything on this. So, Godfathers of Slam are back with a clean, well-produced effort. Even though there's been some talk online of overproduction, whatever. Sorry you like to hear your metal so clean.
Yeah,
like,
right.
what the fuck is that? I don't know. I got. Sorry for us wanting clean-sounding music, internet. Like, no, I don't want it to sound like dog shit. I want my death metal clean, and I want to hear all the parts, right?
Yeah. I don't want to pay for white noise and static.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So now the vocals are as boring as they get.
Okay.
Which is like kind of weird to say this is on my top list of albums. There's a lot of other albums. Like when you get into this little middle section for me, there's really no, maybe like I said, I don't know if I said that or said that beforehand, but maybe top 1, 2, or 3 are where my top 3 are. All these albums are just
interchangeable.
Good albums. Exactly.
Yeah.
And then there's even a few albums that aren't necessarily on my top list that probably could even be interchanged because I have a lot of albums I listen to. But anyway, this is a great, stay true to the roots of death metal, cool technical groove parts in there. They slam. Like I said, the vocals to me are as boring as they get. I mean, it's just one monotone vocal the whole time, but the music is so good and the riffs crush so hard and the musicianship is top tier, and that's just kind of more my style, that I can kind of overlook that boring monotone vocal because what do you expect in 2023, 2024? That's Suffocation staying true to what they've always done.
Since the 90s.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, like, that's where my respect and them moving up on this tier became because they are still showing that however old they are, older than us, they're still coming out just fucking punishing and sweet. And I did get to see them a few years ago, and they were sharp, they were tight. So this band, without this band, there's not a lot of these other bands that we would even probably talk about in this episode. So I got to give them their flowers.
Sure.
Like I said, thought the vocals were just on the boring side, not a lot of things to hang on to, but when you write music that is as good as this music, I can overlook that and go back to my early days of death metal and knowing that that's the only vocal you're going to get and that's not the important part of the album, right?
Right.
We've been spoiled with the Travis Ryans and the amazing vocalists that we've talked about.
Yeah.
Because this used to be the only vocal we would get anyway, so we couldn't complain about it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, and we come from a time when we were listening to the music more than the vocals anyway. The vocals were just kind of on the album, and you liked some, or you didn't like others, or you laughed, or whatever. And we weren't sitting around as kids listening to these songs to take them to the dance in 7th or 8th grade or in high school. We were listening to these songs to get good at our instruments.
Yes.
And yeah, if the vocal fits the music, then that's fine. For me, I mean, if I was the singer or the vocalist and I listened back and I would think to myself, could have done more. Well, maybe do more next time, please.
Yeah.
Like that's it. Just give it a little bit of variety in there. But if the feeling in that band is that's what we do, then more power to you. Who the fuck am I to tell you what to do? I know on a listening end, I would like a little variety in the vocals, not just one constant low guttural. Throw them highs in there if you got them. Throw a couple of mids, do some backups. But they've been doing it for a long time. They don't need any advice from anybody. They're just like that dying fetus. They're just going to keep cranking out what you can know, love, and expect from them. And
they're going to sell tickets.
Yeah,
because people love them.
They're going to be on the bill.
That's why it made it to my list.
All right. So let me pop over to mine again. I got buttons to push.
No worries.
Buttons. Here we go. Burger. So this one, I don't know if I should talk about this one. This one's an EP. Do you want me to skip it? I'll skip the EP. Let's skip the EP.
That's fine. Whatever.
We'll come back to EPs later.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah, I don't have any EPs on my top 10 list.
We should talk about EPs.
I would love to,
because that's kind of where music is going.
Because I got a few EPs to talk of. So
I'm really excited. So I'll skip this one. I'm really excited to talk about this next one on my list. It's this band Vexed.
Yep. Okay.
Okay, and so this one's going to be, like I mentioned this earlier with another album. This is one of the angriest albums I've heard. Just something about the emotion coming through here is absolutely disgustingly angry, as are the vocals. 8-string guitars, super talented, genty. Probably for I might reach here, but maybe for some fans of Spite, After the Burial, and you go old school with it with like Mudvayne, but you know, like again, now Mudvayne's a little bit dated, so you got to like extrapolate over time. Like a gent new metal type thing is happening here. And there's other things. Jay, help me out. You've heard the album, I know.
Yes.
I feel like I made you listen to it just so that I could have you help me explain the genre for people.
So when you came at me and you texted me, hey, listen to this, it happened to be at one of the times where my list was pretty much done. I listened to a whole lot of things, so I'm like, all right, cool. I can start getting to some of these ones that Nick is sharing with me, right?
And same with mine. Like my list was done, and I recalled again the photo of the dashboard of one song.
Yep.
And I was like, man, you know, they had that really good song that I did enjoy. It was a little gimmicky, but let me just circle back and do my diligence and just see what else they have on the album. Man, I listened to that thing and I was immediately blown away. So your take on it, please, Jay.
Vocals are super sick.
So sick.
Female vocalist doesn't really matter.
No.
Especially nowadays.
Nowadays, especially.
But I just like to put that out there because you could listen to it and be like, oh, wow.
Well, I got it.
Like, I didn't know. Like,
that was the same feeling.
Yeah.
When I listened to it, I had no gender association to it whatsoever. I just thought that those are some super fucking sick vocals.
And I think that's where we're at with music.
Yeah.
You know, because I have 3 or 4 female-fronted bands that are on my top list of the year just because I fucking love the vocals. It doesn't matter if it's boy, girl, whatever, you know.
And I think to the greater point here, when we mention something like that, I think the real intent and the feeling between us is the girls can play with the boys.
Yes.
That's all it is. That's the only reason we say shit like that is so that all the women out there that are involved in metal don't feel so much of a minority. Yep. They're coming up. They're playing. They're not just vocalists. The women are coming up and playing the guitar, the bass, the drums, all of it. And we'll probably speak to women in metal
we'll get
later.
To, yeah.
I didn't want.
But we'll also get to a band that we both will talk about that I know that's on your list. The album that's sitting right here.
Yeah. So,
but with Vexed, it's hard to say new metal, especially at this point in 2023, because you're like, oh, Limp Bizkit, $3 bill, y'all. You know what I mean? Like, or Korn. But at the same time, I think it's more that jumpy beat, like you know what I mean? Like, get up, like that. But in some of the vocals that she does, they're not rap, but the patterns are kind of rappy, where it's like, you know,
spit rapid fire.
It's like this new age of gent where there's like these weird guitar noises, and then it's heavy as shit, but great songs, great patterns. Pissed Off, which like that has me hooked because like the first 3 minutes I was like, okay, Nick, thanks for this one.
Yep, thank you.
This one is badass. I like it. There is, towards the end of the album, there's some cool, clean singing, but I'm glad they don't pepper that in every song. I even mentioned this to you because then it would just get a little on the emo side to me. And don't get me wrong, I love me like some Paramore and some bands like that or whatever. But that fits in that.
Yeah.
If that was all this and like the heaviness, I don't think I would be able to love this album as much as I did because it'd just be too much. I like how they peppered it in at the end to give you a little taste of some more stuff that we do instead of just 10 songs of brutal fucking like heavy dry vocals. But badass album. I fucking love this album.
I am so happy to hear you say that because not that I need the validation, I don't, but just to hear you say that it is as good as I thought it was, like that does validate my listening experience and my feelings toward it a little bit. The clean singing at the end of the album is a nice way to kind of close out an album, you know, and it's not like a big come down. You know, it's still heavy as fuck in and around those clean vocals, right? Yeah. They just decided that, hey, Megan can also sing, so we're going to throw in some vocals. She feels like she wants to clean sing here. Well, then that's what's happening, you know, and it's cool that they have like some choruses, right? And there's definitely song structure in here.
Yep.
I would say the vocalist sings over a good portion of the music, and you and I have stated how we feel about that, but it's not, I don't know, she does a really good job of fitting in with the music and singing to and with the music.
Patterns are big in that aspect, though, because if you got a good pattern, it's not like you're just like singing when the riffs are like a 1, 2, 3, 4. You're not singing a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and holding it over. You're like kind of going with it. So that's where the patterns come in. I'm not really mad if you sing over everything. Give me a pattern. But if you're just ranting and raving with no like it doesn't fit the music and a rhythmic sense, that's where shit gets a little on the awkward side for me.
And she did a really great job of, like, as I'm reading the lyrics and listening to the patterns, right? Like, the rapid spitfire, you know, some people might do that and then just blurt it all out, but there's like intentional pauses and breaks in that rapid fire vocal pattern because It's a pattern.
Yes.
She wrote a pattern to it. And I was thinking about it. And I was like, why doesn't this bother me like it does some other things? And it clicked. I was like, oh, because she's using vocal patterns to go with the music instead of just like dropping words all over it in a mess that makes no sense.
Yes,
like,
exactly.
And so
that's a great way to put it.
And the vocals, again, some of my favorite, I wish I knew about this vocalist, Megan Target, when we were doing the episode about like best
Like
metal vocalists, because I would have had her name ringing like so loud and clear throughout that episode. Megan Target, great work, great vocals all the way across the board. Love the lyrics, love everything you're doing. So real, so fucking real with these words. Thank you, girl. Goddamn, I fucking love you for everything that you've said on this album. Like, taking it to a place where people don't want to go. People be uncomfortable reading these lyrics if they are not about what she is saying and giving to you. Like, just too fucking real. Nothing painted in allegory or metaphor here, okay? This is some real shit that she's on. And, man, thank you, Vexed, for being a band and putting this album out. The guitar work is, at first I thought it was a little bit gimmicky based on one song with the noises.
Yeah.
But then I listened to, the whole album. This guy is a player.
Yeah.
This guy is good. Really good.
The guitar work kind of fits into like the Valamaya After the Burial style a lot too, with the weird noises and the heavy gent type things. So just to give people perspective on kind of what the guitar does sound like.
There is enough of like musical progression in it though that it doesn't become like a boring gent thing. Like he moves around the melody and stuff to where it doesn't become monotonous and repetitive. Yeah. It's very exciting. So Vexed, the name of the album is Negative Energy. Please look them up immediately now.
Yeah.
Stop listening to the podcast, pause it, come back to us, and then listen to the rest of the show. Yeah. Jay, thank you, Jay, for listening to that album for me. I really appreciate you taking
it was
that
good.
time.
I really liked it. I was very impressed by the time it was over. I was really happy with the listen. I was like, okay, this is great.
Cool.
So good segue into my next album.
All right.
So another female-fronted band.
Okay.
Dying Wish, Symptoms of Survival.
Okay.
So this is one of my favorite albums of this year. I probably listened to this album almost as much as my top one or two on this list.
Awesome.
So that's why I say it doesn't really go in order except the top few.
Okay.
This album kind of goes back to what you were saying about Currents.
Okay.
Just great grooves, man. Just pummeling deathcore. They have a little bit of metalcore aspect to them. Sometimes they get a bicka in there, but the guitar tone is just so crisp. The production is super tight, and the songwriting is good. She does some of the same things, too. She adds in a little bit of clean singing here or there, to kind of bring a hook back.
Yep.
And it's just really good. She's a really great vocalist. She's super pissed on the piss parts, and when it comes in the clean singing, like, oh, where'd that come from? Because it's, like, angelic and just... really makes a huge impact, but she also doesn't overuse it, which I think is more impactful.
Yeah.
Like we've talked about other elements, grind, groove, stuff like that.
Yeah.
This album is a jammer. It breaks up the hardcore with the clean singing, but this album is like hardcore, deathcore, death metal, metalcore. Like it's just a good mix of shit. But if you just want to fucking headbang and you just want a heavy groove, like I would love to see these guys live because I just see people spin kicking, doing the whole thing, man.
Hey, it's all good until a crowd killer comes along because then it's
we're
choke out time.
It's such a good album. I can't speak highly of this effort enough. These guys came out on my radar like early this year. I believe Larry shared them with me. And then Luke shared them with me later along the lines. And then I went back and was like, Larry, you heard this band? He's like, yeah, I already shared it with you. I was like, oh, yeah, that's right. I should have listened to it. Yeah. I should have listened to it when you sent it to me, but I only listened to it when Luke sent it to me.
They catch you with the poser pants on?
Yeah, Larry's like, I already had it, dude. I already got you. Don't worry about it. But yeah, fucking awesome album, man. If you just want some jams, you want a fucking headbang, you want some good riffs. Because like every riff, you're like, oh, that's a sweet riff.
Wish I wrote it.
Yeah. Then the next riff is like, oh, that's a sweet riff,
Yeah,
so
nice.
It's just a great fucking album. I love it.
Awesome. I'm going to have to listen to that. I feel like I'm being taught something brand new right now. I don't even know this band name, Dying Wish. Where the fuck have I been? I'm probably going to go back and say, oh, I've seen or heard of this before, but
if they didn't play them on your metal channel, I don't know what the fuck's the matter with those people because there's no way they probably haven't. Because they've become more and more of a thing as recent, or they just become more on my radar. So it's like one of those perception things, reticular activation system things. You know what that is? Like once you see it, then you see it everywhere type thing, and everybody's talking about it when they probably already were, but it just wasn't on your radar type thing. So
now they're on mine, and I'm going to give them a look.
Dude,
now,
I think you would like it a lot. Like I feel like it fits a lot of the things that you were talking about. The Currents may not be as technical because they don't have Chris in the band. They're more on the hardcore side.
Sure.
But like if you want some tasty hardcore metal core stuff, Dying Wish is the ticket right there.
Awesome. I'm going to definitely make note of that because that does sound like something that the way you describe it is something I want to listen to. So the next one, Jay, I know it's on both of our lists, and I know we have huge feelings about it, and we don't care about anybody else's opinions about this next band. And I think it's one that you have on your list, so we can both freely speak to it wherever it is on your list. We'll just jump around it then. But Sleep Token, Take Me Back to Eden. My review of it is it fucks, don't come for me. Okay? Great fucking album. I don't know what to tell people. I can't make people like it. It's got metal elements to it, but this is just a musical gem for me. Boy, everything from vocals to music to depth to lyrics, songwriting, emotion. Man, the emotion on this album is, again, sincere. It reminds me of Vexed, not in an angry capacity, but just in a genuine, heartfelt, like, release of words and music. I absolutely love it. I know people have feelings on this, and I'm not going to give haters a whole lot of credence. I'm sorry if Sleep Token doesn't move you like it does me. I wish everybody would listen to Sleep Token and take something from it, because another album to me that almost transcends music, right? It's so important to have this album. And I know it's like, come on, you guys, where's the cattle decap? And we're getting to it. Where's the heavy? And this has got some heavy moments on it. Jay, help me out here. Just sell them on the heavy and then sell them on the light.
So, Sleep Token, Take Me Back to Eden, this is my number 2 album of the year.
Okay.
So that's how much of an impact is made for me.
Okay.
Quick story on Sleep Token, one of those bands where it's like, you hear about it all the time. I'm always the guy that's like, it's like the South Park thing. South Park's funny, but when everybody else loves it and thinks it's funny, I'm not going to listen to it because I'm my own guy and I don't want to fucking hear it.
Yeah.
Sleep Token's that for me. I gave it a chance on my own free will. Hey, let me listen to this. I was blown away. Goosebumps on my fucking arms where I'm like, wait,
I get it.
There is music that is this fucking good out there.
Right.
And yeah, some of it's a little bit on the lighter side. But when it comes to the technical aspect of producing something like this, I know what it takes to not only do everything they did to produce this and produce it live, but to be able to take all of that and bundle it together to write great songs that are emotional and moving and impactful.
Yeah.
I can't say enough good things about this album. That's why it's my number 2 album of the year. There is heavy shit.
Oh, yeah.
Go watch a drum playthrough from this fucking drummer.
Yeah.
He is a goddamn monster. He can hang with any drummer. I don't give a shit. Like, he may not be grinding, and there might be, like, the gent backbeat, but some of these fills and some of this stuff that he's coming up with on the parts that get really heavy is just mind-blowing to me. Every time it comes across my feed, I watch it. I'm like, oh, my God, this is something I've never seen before. His snare sound is badass. This album is just fucking spectacular. It made me dig into more Sleep Token. Love all their other shit, too. But I can't say enough good things about this album. Great songwriting, emotional, takes you there. I say it's on the extreme side because it's so far removed from like an Ed Sheeran where that writes great songs. So you can't put it in that.
Right.
There's metal elements, but it is so extreme in a different way that these guys have surpassed and taken music to another level that has never been taken to before.
And I think one thing that we haven't said yet that helps explain this band and this album is the words genre bending or blending, if you will. So a lot of bands will take and say, oh, I want to have a jazz segment here, or oh, I want to do with this here. Sleep Token just writes good music, and whatever, from one riff to the next could be an entirely different genre, but it flows naturally. It was seamless going from rock to hip hop to metal to R&B on this album. Nothing felt disjointed. Nothing felt out of place or gimmicky. Everything about this album is beautiful. If you don't like it, great. Don't come for me. I don't care. You're wasting your breath. I might be wasting mine telling you it's that good. I'm fine with it. I'm going to gas up the things I love all day long and not even pay credence to the things I hate. So if you don't like Sleep Token, that's fine. I mean, there's bands that kind of come before them, you know, like doing the thing. Maybe Tool is one. I think people are going to start to associate Tool with Sleep Token. If I'm the first person to say that, I don't think I am, but there's a Tool element there.
Yeah.
But it's not Tool.
No,
it's not Tool
it's
at
not.
all. It just has a feeling because it's so highbrow and so like, you know, intentional in and of the art's sake. You know, this isn't something that's supposed to be silly or tongue in cheek. This is a man bleeding on the microphone for you, you know, to consume and value. I don't even say enjoy. I enjoyed it, but man, the man feels like he's bleeding for it. So God bless. I absolutely love Sleep Token. Take Me Back to Eden.
Yeah, me too. His poetry, his lyrics, I mean, just everything about it is fucking incredible. And it's been a long time. Like, I have 10 albums on my list, and there's not one album that has impacted me like this album. Like, it's been a long time since I've heard music that made me feel in a certain way, because that's why we listen to music, right? For a feeling.
Yeah.
This feeling is so intense.
Yeah.
If you dive in and intentionally listen to this, and you can, like, put your own bullshit aside and take it in, because a lot of people probably like, but they can't put their bullshit aside because they don't want to feel those feelings, right?
Yeah.
They don't want to relate.
No.
So it's easy to sweep under the rug.
Yeah.
But if you let it take you,
you're going places.
You're going places.
Yeah, for sure with this album.
And the flow of it, like you said, it's not just like, oh, here's an R&B part, here's a heavy part. Like, there's a lot of bands that have done that to try to stand out, and they've done it terribly. None come to mind, but there are bands that have done that where they're trying to, like, genre blend. But this is a different level of production and musicianship that I've never seen before in my years and years of listening to music, and that's how impactful this album is to me. We could probably keep talking about it because I don't want to keep going on it. If you don't like it, that's cool. If you'd rather, don't worry. I got some technical death metal shit coming up for you right now. But this album alone, it had to be on my list too. That's all there is to it.
Yeah, same. I couldn't not mention it. I know it's not the heaviest metal, but it does get heavy, and it is heavy enough to put in here with the rest of these by virtue of the fact that it is heavy. If it didn't have any of those heavy elements, it might not be on this show, right? There wouldn't really be a space to talk about it. But we're going to sit here and both tell you that there's heavy on this album. It's just not going to be 45 minutes straight. It's a whole different kind of heavy. It's a heavy emotional. It's a heavy musical, and it is some metal in there too, obviously. And not for nothing, if you get a chance to see these guys, they do get into some cool garb, costume attire, which I'm kind of hip to. I like the runes. I like it. People don't like people or bands in costumes sometimes. I love it. The older I get, the more valuable it is to me. When Behemoth rolls out on stage and they got their attire on, I want to watch, not just listen, watch. And I think Sleep Token brings that as well. So if you guys aren't hip to Sleep Token yet, or you're just sick of us talking about it, listen to it, formulate your own opinion, and then we'll go forward from there.
Yeah. Everything isn't for everybody, but this is definitely for me. So
it's for most.
That way,
I really do feel like it's for most.
So taking a complete 180 degrees from what Sleep Token is.
Yep, take me there.
So Dylan from No Deception.
Okay.
I asked for albums from everybody online.
Yep.
And I said, give me some albums. Maybe I could pick and choose a few on there that I haven't listened to yet. Because obviously with so many albums, you're not going to be able to get everything on your radar. Obviously that is the case too, because there's albums on your list that I didn't even listen to. But Carnosus, Visions of Infinity. I think that's how you say that. This album blew my mind. Technical death metal from Sweden.
Okay.
These guys rip, man.
I'm looking at the song titles. I'm loving it.
Yeah, these guys just rip. And I know Dylan, and I know his taste now from getting to know him.
Okay.
These guys, a new band for me.
Okay, same.
One thing, it can be a bit soupy at times.
Okay.
But it's brutal, melodic, and packed with top-tier musicianship. I mean, these guys just shred. The vocals are killer, and the band is razor tight. I mean, the vocals are all over the board. You're not just getting one vocal.
No two-tone Timmy.
No, he's giving you 10-tone Timmy at least, because he is one of those vocalists. I think I mentioned him. I don't think the vocal episode comes out later, but anyway, he's on my top vocalist list too because of the amount of range and the things that he does. The only downfall of this album, it is rated super high for me because it is technical death metal. I know technical death metal isn't always for everybody, but what they pull off in this album, from production to songwriting to, it's just a great technical death metal effort from these guys. So if you're into technical death metal, you haven't heard Carnosus, check them out because you're missing out.
I'm with it just because Dylan from No Deception recommended it, and I love their band, so I'm gonna draw on their influences too, just to listen to bands like No Deception. So with that in mind, Jay, spit some other band names that people might be able to relate to. Are they like Inferi? What are we talking about
Yeah,
here?
there would be more like Inferi. I just remember it was another one of those albums that, like, part after part, I was just like, oh, that's sweet.
Yeah.
Oh, that's sweet. You know, and there's not many albums that do that. You
Right.
might get a few filler riffs, but every single riff. But yeah, it would be along the Inferi type technical metal where it's like it takes you on a journey and you got to be prepared for it. If you're not in the tech death mood, don't listen to it.
Yeah.
But the melodies are awesome.
Good.
The riffs are awesome.
So-
There's some thrash in there. So
Hey.
it's like, you know, there's death metal, so it's just not like all low death metal shit.
Right.
There's like they use a lot of the higher strings and chords and stuff, so it's more of a Arsis
Okay.
bands like that.
Okay.
More technical metal where it's all over the fretboard.
Nice.
Bass is just
I
doing
love
all this crazy stuff. So
I love
like
audible bass players.
Yeah, it's a great technical death metal effort. So check
Real-
them out.
You made me think of something too. We talk a lot about songwriting and crafting on the podcast, and you said it's a little bit soupy. But then you also said like the melodies take you places.
Yes.
There's the caveat.
Yeah.
You can get away with writing riff soup if you can just put a majestic melody over it. You know, like I'm not going to be mad about it. Make it make sense. If the riffs don't come back, that's your call. You're the songwriter. That's fine. Do your thing. Make it make sense to me would be like beats that make sense or a melody that makes sense, you know, and if it's very melodic in that capacity, it makes it so much easier to listen to something that's going to be like almost chaotic otherwise.
Yeah.
So great call on that. Jay, thanks for enlightening me to Carnosus. I have no recollection of ever hearing about them.
And then real quick before we move on, my thing is, and the same thing we talked about on the No Deception episode, is like, I just feel like, man, I wish you kind of brought that riff back for me.
Mm-hmm.
Because you could have probably wrote 3 albums out of this one,
Right.
if you would have repeated some of the cool shit that you guys bought. But I guess if you just got a plethora of awesome riffs all day, must be nice.
Yeah. So I feel like as long as you're getting out of bed and jamming every morning, those riffs will keep coming out of
that
you.
is true.
And guys probably, you know, some of these songwriters, they probably feel that way, you know. I don't need to sit on this riff for 3 minutes or make a whole song out of it because
Right.
I'm gonna crap 20 more of these today by
Right.
the end of the day anyway.
Yeah,
So
you know, and if you're technically proficient, it's easy to put notes together in the most awkward ways
right.
and make it make sense. Whereas some people only know there are certain chords or certain scales that they stick to, you know?
Right.
So
Carnosus. Okay.
Yep.
So we're gonna now move again, almost not exactly a 180. Man, this might even be more than a 180. I'm going to skip an EP. We'll come back to EPs.
Okay.
I love this EP, but we're going to skip that one. I'm going to go with a very popular band name. Another one I feel like people are going to thumbs down and hate me on. I don't really care. I had to grow to love this band myself. And I loved them outright. And then I just gave up on them. I was like, I don't like what they're doing anymore. And then they came back around for me in ways that I could appreciate again. And that band is Avenged Sevenfold.
Okay.
Super popular. I know everybody knows them. The new album, Life is But a Dream, is exactly that. It's dreamy. I got a little write-up here. I loved it. Now, the first half is heavy metal. In the classic Metallica-type heavy metal, right? So we're not talking death metal. We're not talking grind blast or any of that.
Yeah.
It's just got groove, beat, and the things that make heavy metal metal. With the guitars, the crunching guitars, the lead guitars, drums. Is it Wackerman? What's his first name? Brooke? What's the drummer's name?
I don't know.
I think you know him, but I just don't know. It's fucking Google it. Anyway, they finally got a guy
I'll check it out. Go ahead.
who reminds me and us of the Rev, their original drummer before he passed. And then we know that they went on to Mike Portnoy, had another drummer on Hail to the King. I forget his name off the top of my head.
Brooks Wackerman.
Brooks Wackerman. Thank you. I get it twisted somehow, some way. I introduce other elements to his name, but he is a guy who on the kit really does remind me of the work that Rev did when he was in the band. So that is a nice feeling to have. The vocalist now, M Shadows, he's going to croon over most of this work, and his voice is getting a little bit roachy and strained and coarse. I don't know. Like, I know he's had some throat surgeries. You're going to have to be able to say, I like when a guy sounds like that, or I don't. So the vocals might be a deal breaker for some people. I like it. It's not a problem for me. It's like that gruff kind of a Fry, but without being a Fry vocal. He's got that little bit of a natural rasp in there. So it's something that I dig. There is a heavy use of piano and classical orchestration on the back end of this album, to the point where I had to question calling it even a heavy metal album because it really goes off into like the dream world, and you're not getting a lot of the guitar work on side B. If this is a cassette and you flip it over, you're going to sleep. The first half of it rocks. I like Nobody, Mattel are the two that they put out to represent the album. And then on the back end, again, everything kind of just feels like Mr. Sandman. You know, it's really dreamy. And I don't want to sit here and say that they did this to troll their fans, because they're so fucking huge. They can do anything they want. You know, and I thought other bands might do this along their way too. Metallica, Tool, where they just do anything they want. They don't care. You hate it? Tough shit. Here it is. I don't think they did it to troll their fans. I think they did a really good job of writing music that was way outside of the box that anybody would have expected or anticipated or even wanted from them. But nonetheless, when I listened to it intentionally, I thought, this is really fun. This is good. I like it. It's mellow, and you're just like, what happened? What happened to this album? Where did the metal go? But it wasn't bothersome for me. I just think that for some people, they're going to hit track 6 or 7 at some point and just cut it off.
Right.
Which isn't like a great sell. It just means that you don't like what's happening on the back end.
Yeah.
Other people, like myself, you're going to either utilize side 1 for your mood, or just go to, I need side 2 today. I just need to chill out right now. And it's so much fun in that capacity. I definitely say watch the videos if you have the opportunity. The videos are super fun, especially Nobody. Nobody was such a good video that I think the video even transcended the song for me. And it's a great song, but I love the video. I love the existential lyrical content that God damn it. I said M Shadows, the vocalist. I love his lyrical content, and it's very tongue in cheek for a guy who writes like really heady lyrics. If you're like reading along and you kind of get the vibe of the humor of the band, there's some humor in there, and I catch myself snickering and laughing. Whereas it should be serious because it is existential, but at the end of the day, you almost have to laugh to keep from crying.
Yeah.
And I think they do a really good job of evoking a lot of this kind of like balance in their life, in their music, in their art, where it's serious. They take their craft very seriously, and they write about serious things too. But then they also offer you a little bit of what you gonna do?
Yeah.
You know, so a little bit of sense of humor there. Again, Avenged Sevenfold. I just grew to liking them again. And way back in the day, we know sounding the seventh trumpet or what have you.
Yeah.
The purple one, super heavy. Like
that's where I've known them from,
Yeah,
and ever since then, I've never listened to anything after that.
Yeah,
so.
and again, you know, I get it. They're a little bit more popular, mainstream, polished, and what have you. Some of them, there's worse terms for this band that people are going to throw at it. But again, I had been guilty of being a hater and or a gatekeeper, a sinister gatekeeper. I fucking love this band though, and that's probably what it hinges on, is his guitar work. More than anything, I am just taken with Sin's guitar work. The guy's just good. Really, really good.
Oh, yeah,
He inspires
sure.
me to play. I love his
Super
work.
good.
I love his taste.
Yeah.
So Avenged Sevenfold, Life is But a Dream came out this year, and highly recommend. There it sits. Most all of these that I have are laid out for you guys to see, but give it a chance. It does come with that fair warning, right? We've been giving people fair warning, vocals, this, that, the other thing. It's a little chill on the back end. If you're not down for the chill, you probably cut it off. I waited for some of that guitar work to come back. I don't really feel like it really did in ways that I would have hoped for from the front half of the album.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, they're so long in the tooth, right? God, they've been around forever. Let them do what they want. I don't need them to write a metal album front to back.
Right.
They've got a whole catalog full of it.
They've done that, you
Yeah.
know, and we've got into that a little bit on when you had spoke to them on the Slept on Bands episode.
Yep.
Yeah,
that episode. So
Yep.
again, I know it's not for everybody. I'm not going to try and sell somebody too hard on it. Even Avenged Sevenfold fans, I can't even sell it to them because they're either going to love it or hate it.
Yeah.
But for music fans, for people that maybe haven't even given this band the time of the day, like I really wasn't, I think it's a good piece of music. So I recommend that one. The place on the list doesn't really mean anything to me in terms of like ranking,
Right.
1 through 10.
Yeah.
I'm just lobbing these out there in a way that just moving the conversation around back and forth. But Avenged Sevenfold's new one, Life Is But a Dream. I'm for it. Check it out if you want to hear something dreamy.
Okay, cool. All right, so going on to the next album, another technical death metal album, and we did talk about this album on our weekly release special episode we did back in September.
Okay.
So this is the Zenith Passage.
Okay. Yeah, I know. I'm
Fatal
familiar.
Elysium.
Yeah.
This made the top list for me because I've always liked the first Faceless record and some of the second one.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been looking for something like that ever since.
Okay.
Then I found these guys.
Yeah.
And I remember when I first heard them, I was like, holy shit, these guys are sweet.
Mm.
Not knowing that they shared members with the Faceless.
Right.
And it was basically kind of the Faceless 2.0.
Yeah, minus Michael Keane, probably. Yeah.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
And whatever problems he presents.
Yeah. Problematic, but, so without speaking too much to him, I just want to say I'm in his corner. I love that guy for him and his work, and I wish him well. So there's what I have to say about Michael Keane.
I feel the same way. Just a shame that there wasn't enough consistency with the Faceless to keep it going at a pace that
it was.
Because they did so many cool things from...
and I still look forward to his work and what he's doing in the Faceless now, but with respect to the Zenith Passage, this is what the Faceless used to sound like, right? For the first two albums, like this is what you got.
Yeah, and this is what I want.
Yeah, fair.
For me.
Yeah, sure.
That's
fair.
Not to say that the Faceless, some of the other stuff I did come to kind of like.
Mm-hmm.
The clean vocals I could do without.
Sure.
But this band right here, they keep things razor tight with the technicality. I just listened to an interview with a guitar player, and the amount of work that he puts in to make this sound like this,
mm-hmm.
and all the elements that they bring to, because there's like synths in the background, and just how tight you have to be. This almost kind of sounds robotic in a way, too.
Oh, I think that is the intent of the sound, right?
Exactly.
Like alien robotic.
Yeah, but they do it in a way that also captures some human element too, because that's very important as well, right? Because you don't want everything just to sound like so overproduced and tick, 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 tick.
Right.
But these guys just do a great job of bringing to life cool songs, cool layers. The melodic passages are awesome. They get into some heavy grooves on this. I mean, just some in-your-face, grumpy cats. They do the whole thing. So I can't say enough good things about this record because it really made an impact on me this year. Glad to see that these guys came out with this album this year. They did Dave Otero, big producer. He's done Cattle Decap. He's done Arcspire. I mean, he's done all of the extreme metal guys have went to Dave, and he did an amazing job with this album. So if you're into technical death metal, I know the last entry was also technical death metal for me as well.
Sure.
But this one right here, that's kind of more my speed. Where we obviously you and I's taste different, but we got a little bit of something for everybody. But this stands alone as one of the better albums of the year.
All right. Yeah, I mean, we mentioned what they sound like, Zenith Passage. I love. So they have like a really alien kind of a thing. Is it like the visual representation that gives you the alien thing, or is it the sound?
I think it's more the sound with the layers. They have like synths going on, and then like the real weird like tight guitars, because it's like their own thing, you know, like.
So when I listen to it, I really do feel like alien invasion is here now. Like they are amongst us. The vocals too, they do that like a vocal effect at times. It has like some sort of a weird, echoey kind of a effect on it. But I love their work. Definitely harkens back to some old Faceless fans, whether or not they like that tough shit. But I fucking love the Zenith Passage. I have not listened to this album, but I have heard the band, so I know exactly what you're talking about. They stay true to their sound.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Jay's right. And especially when you talk about technical death metal, like when you say those words together, it just sounds like nothing on the paper. Technical death metal. What does it mean? It don't have to mean shit in this case, because these guys do a fresh take on it.
Yes.
It sounds different than a handful of we throw 10 more technical death metal bands at you and then say, yeah, those are all good. Try the Zenith Passage. That's going to give you that technical death metal, but way more flavor and color and just sound atmosphere on it, and still remain technical death metal.
Yes.
But like, very cool album. I haven't listened to the album myself. Very cool band. I know what the album's gonna be. I've heard them before. I'm sure they didn't just switch their style up on us.
Yeah.
It's the same,
Yeah,
and Jay's listened to it for us to tell us. So.
Yeah, but it's just 2023 Zenith Passage, and
Yep.
it's just a great effort overall. Like, we're on an extreme metal podcast, so for me, when it comes to extreme metal, I lean towards the technical side, as you can see from my list, because everything on there has got top-tier musicians for the most part.
Yeah.
But, yeah, just a great album. Definitely made my top album list of this year, so.
All right, Jay, I'm going to take and match your technical death metal with a little melodic death metal.
Okay.
And they definitely have some technicality going on here. The band Crypta with their new release, Shades of Sorrow. Now, Crypta's a band we've talked about a little bit here and there on the show. We've mentioned them. We've name-dropped them a little bit. Man, what a great band. They're from Brazil, members formerly of the band Nervosa.
Yes.
But what they're doing now in this band is probably, and no diss to Nervosa. I do love Nervosa. You got the I
We're
see
good.
I
We're
see
good.
it. Okay.
Yep.
So I just like the growth in this band compared to what Nervosa is doing. And again, no diss on Nervosa. They're cool. I think that's a little bit more streamlined sound and musicianship.
Kind of thrashy more, too.
Yeah. Now, so this has got groove, thrash, melody, instrumentation. I love the vocals. Fernanda's vocals are so cool. They remind me so much of Chuck. And we mention death usually in the same breath as Crypta. But then we've gone back and had a conversation, and we've said, yeah, it's not exactly like death as much as we thought. I think there's elements that make us think of death, but then they're heavier than death.
Oh, yeah.
They're like there's sounds of like Morbid Angel or just heavier than death ever was in ways, and not a bad thing. I mean, it's okay to be heavier than death. We'll allow it. Like,
Yeah, I mean,
death. We've said is not the heaviest band ever, but Crypta with that influence. But you'll hear more influences once you kind of peel back the layers. But
yes.
I love the instrumentation, the guitar work. They're absolute shredders. Dual lead guitarists in this band. The drummer is relentless. I mean, not going to be entirely super flashy up top, but
No.
I love the work. Very militant.
Yes.
Just right back there and more than in the pocket. Not entirely flashy, but super consistent and really empowered the band and the music that they're playing them along with. So Crypta with Shades of Sorrow. Here's where I come back to y'all. I know I threw some other things at you that are a little bit too rock for y'all, but Crypta Shades of Sorrow is one of my favorite albums this year, giving it multiple intentional listens. Absolutely love what they're doing. Missed them coming through the States with Morbid Angel.
Ooh.
And it's a good thing I did because somebody lost their life at that venue.
Oh, damn.
There was a huge snowstorm. The roof collapsed.
Oh.
And one of the fans died. And I'm sure
Jesus.
that hurts everybody involved, especially the family. And I think to myself, man, I'm glad I didn't go to Chicago to watch Crypta that day.
Yeah, no shit.
God.
That's insane.
Yeah, that is insane. Because I will go to a Chicago show.
Yeah.
No,
I was just there.
Yeah, exactly. Detroit, Chicago. I will go to a show. And it's just one of those things I think the logistics didn't really match up for us, or I just didn't want to make the drive alone. On so that I will have to circle back to seeing them live another time, and hopefully not in the winter, and possibly at a better venue that's built to withstand weather. But so just a little anecdote about them. I hope they and their camp are okay from that tour, because I know that tour had multiple problems and it was documented along the way. But I'm glad to see that they're out there touring with somebody as big as Morbid Angel and getting their name out there.
Yes.
It's probably more where I want to take that anecdote of the story. Please give Crypta the time of day if you're into that old school Tampa death metal, and with a new fresh spin on it.
Yes.
And great musicians. Jay, anything more you want to add to the Crypta?
I have a description of this album laid out, and you pretty much hit every single one. My first line is a page or few out of Chuck's book.
Mm-hmm.
Gets heavier than death ever was. And you had already said that, so I don't want to reiterate the same points. But they do get into some grind. They do get into some like heavy groove shit that's like Morbid Angel, almost breakdowny at times.
Mm-hmm.
Like this is real heavy stuff. I absolutely love this band too. Had the first impression where they were really, oh, this is really death. But after another intentional listening, it's actually moved further away from that, where I see there's parts and influence where you could probably listen to some of our music and say the same thing.
Yeah.
But her vocal does hearken to some of Chuck's vocal because of that higher register Fry vocal. So that's where some of it comes from.
Yeah.
And some when they get into these little weird, like longer passages of like more open chords and whole notes with the melody, kind of really calls back to death. but there are like you said, that's a good analogy as far as like Morbid Angel, or comparison, I should say, not analogy. Comparison, like Morbid Angel heavy, where these gals get heavy.
Oh yeah.
And this is a great record. Cool songwriting. I love the callback stuff you can call back to.
Formulaic songwriting.
A little long for me.
Okay.
I'm in this school. It's like, give me 33 minutes.
Okay.
Make me want to listen to it again.
Sure.
But these 50, 60-minute efforts, I can't do it unless you're sleep token now. Like I don't need 60 minutes. I'm sorry, I just don't. I need 40 or less. But with that being said, that's probably their influences. I just felt that album was a little long. That's kind of my only complaint about it. But overall, it is a great album. It didn't make my top albums, but I could put this one right in there and replace a Dying Fetus or replace a Suffocation. Like a lot of these are interchangeable with my top. I just had to pick 10.
Yeah, for me, the length of the album is no problem. It's good front to back for me. I get where you're coming from. Sometimes you just don't want to make that kind of time.
Yeah,
and there's not gonna be that kind of time
when you have intentional listening, like we're talking about.
Yeah,
it's a lot to carve out.
1 hour of your day.
Yeah,
there's only 24 of them. And I sleep like 8 of them if I can. Or whatever. But
exactly.
And then there's work, and so intentional listening of music. We're asking a lot of people, and we're not asking you to do it all the time, but try it. See how you like it. It's fun. I like it. Dim lights, just me in my head, the lyrics, the art. It's cool. It is long. I think we're moving to a phase in music where you're going to start seeing shorter albums and more EPs.
Yeah. But stay true to your art.
Absolutely.
If you got 10 songs and it comes to 65 minutes or 60 minutes or whatever it is, do you. And I'm just saying what I personally like, what's easier for me to digest.
Yeah.
But I also like the idea of like, man, I want more. So maybe I'll go back and listen to it again.
Yeah.
But if you give me 70 minutes, by the 70th minute, I'm like, man, it's going to be a while before I put that one back in again.
Yeah, like that last Tool album. I think I'm still listening to it.
Yeah. That's song number 5. I mean, that's song number 5 of it. 9.
So, yeah, with longer albums, I think, as music fans, we're going to want to be able to have like shorter. Now, however, if you're that prolific and you can just keep writing like that, and you're like, man, I have 20 songs, I can write an album. Put on an album.
Yeah.
It's
your art. Do what you want.
Yeah, but I mean, for the sake of getting music out to your fans, I think we're at a time where you want to keep getting music out instead of the 2-year cycle. Here's an album, tour on it, write an album, record it, and then drop one 2 years later. No, we're in a way faster day and age. In the internet, I need your 4-song EP quarterly.
Yeah.
I need 4 songs every 4 months, okay? Yeah. So I get it. That's the way that the world is moving, but I would never discourage an artist or a band from writing a full album.
Right.
Write a full album. You'll feel so good about it.
And it's different, too, because these bands, we've never toured, but these bands are writing an album and touring for 3 years, so they got enough material to be switching shit in and out, so they're kind of looking at it like that, too. So, it's a different consumption process. So, got a couple more albums here. I know this has been a long one, so thank you guys for sticking with us. But, man, we just love talking about music, and we hope that you guys got something good out of this. So,
yeah, share your albums with us, please.
Yes, please. So 2 more albums. That's what I'm going for here. And then we'll wrap this up, and then we'll probably do a part 2 of this for sure, because I got a lot more here where that came from.
And we're going to share one of those albums, too, so that'll be just basically like 2 for you, one for me.
Yeah,
because I'm going to speak to the same one as you.
Well, I got 2 total, and that's one of them. So it looks like you have a little bit.
I'm not going to speak to an EP. I'm going to speak to one further down on the list. And
cool.
And then
so one from each of us, and then we share our top album.
You got it.
So this one was a huge surprise to me. So we're talking about In Flames, Foregone. Okay. This made it high on my list.
Yeah,
I have it. This came out of nowhere, but I think the addition of Chris Broderick to the band really gave In Flames the life it once had.
Yeah, you could hear it.
It's like an old In Flames with the cool instrumental passages. It's a great melodic ferocity and great songwriting returns. They've always wrote like songs, right?
Yeah.
But Anders always had a knack for writing great patterns and hooks, I've thought.
Yeah.
But we've talked a little bit about that. His vocal got a little whiny, a little catty, a little cat in the alley.
Yeah.
I don't really care for that, at times. But his clean singing, they introduced it in the early 2000s, and it seemed to get softer with every release, more and more clean singing, more and more clean singing. What I fell in love with In Flames wasn't the clean singing.
Yeah.
It was their ability to take that melodic and heavy and put it in a package that they stood on their own in their own pillar in their
Yeah.
own space. Even though you could mention them alongside of At the Gates or Dark Tranquility, they are all their own band in their
Yeah.
own unit.
Yeah.
That's why I loved In Flames. But this album, I put Bite You Back.
Okay.
Finally.
There you go.
It has that ferocity, and it's a fresh take on the band that we've needed for so long.
Yeah.
So I wrote these guys off a long time ago. We were talking a
Same.
little bit before.
At different times,
yeah,
you and I have both
even
written this band off.
before you
Yep.
wrote them off.
Mhm.
Not to say that that stuff wasn't good. I was just like, I just didn't like it no more. It just was not for me. Like
Mhm.
Clayman, I don't know what one was after that. Was that Reroute to Remain
was
after Clayman?
Yes.
So about right there was just kind of was like I checked out. Still the heavy guy. I still need that heaviness. I like other stuff too, but it just wasn't doing it for me. And I know
Right.
there was member additions and member subtractions
Yup.
and all that takes a part in that. They lost a good part of what was In Flames, what was the driving force behind that. So they kept the band going, but like their main writers, I think it was Peter and they're
Just-
on a different band now. I'm trying to remember the name, but it's just not coming to me. I just seen like an ad for it or
Yeah.
whatever.
So
But-
the main
go ahead.
songwriter was Jesper Stromlin,
Yeah,
I
Jesper.
believe.
Yep,
So
yep.
he started another band. Again, that band name escapes me as well. It definitely sounds like an In Flames of old.
Yeah.
I think I don't know if it's Dark Tranquility's vocalist or something. I have no idea who the vocalist is on that one. But yeah, there's an In Flames 2.0 out there. But we're always going to look to In Flames 1 version 1.0 first.
Yes.
And they're back. I've heard some of the new work. I appreciate it. It reminds me of the era of Clayman and Reroute to Remain. To sit here and say that they're able to reach the majesty of the first 3 albums with Anders, I don't know. I'll listen to the whole album again, but to me, Jester Race, Horacle, and Colony are fucking untouchable. And it's going to be hard for me to listen to this new album and think that they can still deliver that kind of music to me. Now you're telling me it's great, and I love it. I love to hear that In Flames is back and heavy, and I've heard some songs, and I agree they are back and heavy again. I am curious to know like how close are we going to get to what they used to be? If that's the idea, right? That's what they're doing. They're giving their fans the heavy that we've been calling for like a decade now.
Yeah.
And I
or
know
more.
some fans have been riding with In Flames forever, and I've been called out for hating on them. Like, you ain't got to do that, bro. You ain't got to be that mean about it.
Right.
But as a fan, like when somebody's giving you something that you just did not want or ask for, you're like, man, I don't know what you guys are doing to me. Why do you think I want this? This is not what you do.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where In Flames went for me
Yep.
in ways. They just went.
Yeah, this album though, man, like I said, it was a surprise to me. But when I listened to it, I wanted to listen to it again.
Good.
Like because it
Good.
was that good. It was heavy as shit. Like there were parts on there that I was super surprised about. Like I was like, oh, okay, this is a new level
Yep.
of In Flames that I haven't taken the time to listen to. And I'm sure there's parts of that over the last few albums, but they're like you like to say, long in the tooth. They have so many
Oh, yeah.
albums and shit out. It's so crazy. And I can't say I've given the ones from where I left off that I didn't want to hear anything else from them a fair shake.
Sure.
But it almost seemed like it would have been a waste of my time, to be honest. But this album, needed to listen to it, and then all of a sudden it shot to one of my top albums
Yeah.
of the year because it has everything I like in metal.
Yeah.
Melodic, heavy as shit, good songwriting. The singing on this is better than he's ever been.
Yeah.
And like I said, it bites you back. It's like
Nice.
one of those things where it's just like, you
Great.
know,
I
liked
feel
it.
like
Really liked it.
if they can win you back, then they'll definitely have won me over because our tastes aren't so dissimilar. We both love
Oh,
metal.
yeah.
We both come from listening to their
Yeah.
first albums, from Lunar Strain on up, right? And then we each dropped out at some point of the In Flames camp.
Mhm.
Like I just not interested, moving on, and now they're back and they're doing something that we can both get behind. And I'll have to give the album a full listen, but I hear where you're coming from because I've heard a couple of tracks off of it, and I
Yeah.
got to agree with you.
Yeah.
It definitely goes back to an era that I'm familiar with.
Yes.
And
And you got to think of the time, place, and energy, and what we've talked about. Like it's kind of the At the Gates thing. At the Gates is amazing. Nothing's going to be Slaughter of the Soul.
right,
Nothing's going to be the Jester Race
right,
or Horacle.
Yep.
Plus the time that impacted our lives. That speaks to a whole different,
feeling. Or,
whole different feeling or a whole different mood
Yeah.
of where we're at in our life. But this one came into my life at the right time. So What else you got, homie?
Well, I'm glad In Flames is back. I've got a new one for you. I had been following just social media posts and what other people are digging on, and so I saw some rave review about this band called Silent Planet. Have you heard of them? Maybe not.
No, I have not.
So it looks like they dropped an album here late in the year called Super Bloom, and so this is entirely new to me. I know next to nothing about this band, period. But there was some hype behind it, and I thought I'd give it a listen. And I gotta say, it didn't. I don't know. So we're talking top albums. This is one I'm squeezing into the conversation, not as a top album, but because I had other EPs on there I don't want to speak to. But this is a good album. This was, it caught me off guard. It's super like rhythmic and genty in a way. I don't think the guitar work was flashy. I thought they did a lot to just kind of lock in with the drums. In a way that it almost reminded me of Currents in that deathcore, metalcore, mood or genre. They just didn't have like Chris's guitar work on this album.
Yeah.
But they did some really interesting things with like that production element, the atmosphere. They're adding in like, almost like DJ kind of I don't know, like club music or something, like something weird, different that I not. So it just kind of hit. I don't know like terms for this other music. People go out and they dance to like trap or whatever.
Okay.
I have no idea. But the production on it reminded me of something that a DJ would throw down on top of a metal album.
Oh, okay.
And not in a gimmicky, annoying way.
Talking like some EDM type shit.
Yeah. Yes.
Like,
thank you.
okay,
Just, and like the weird alarm sounds.
Oh, okay.
And just
yeah,
weird shit that's not even musical,
Yeah.
but they made it make sense in their album behind all the work that they're doing. So I thought it was really cool because of the way that it breathed. Again, not very melodic for my tastes, but I loved the speed or the pace of the album, the drum work and stuff, and just the way that it breathed. There was this one rhythm, it was nothing but open notes, and a lot of it is that too, right? Where you're like, man, you could kind of maybe move that melody around if you wanted with that pattern, it'd be even better maybe. But the guitarist did something at one point where he just let this open run go in a way with the drums where I was like, oh, that machine gun riff right there was so simple but so effective. And I had to at least come on the show and say, hey, I learned a new band. I need to discover more. I listened to the whole album in one intentional listen, and I was juggling like, how much do I like this? Because I've never even heard anything like this. And I thought, well, I can at least speak to it. I've heard it. It certainly is not bad. Like, this does not annoy me or bug me or any of these terms at all.
Right.
It's just so new to me and something to think about. Like, oh, I haven't heard metal combine these elements before, and I think it's okay. I think it's cool. Let's introduce that, because if I'm out at the club between bands, they drop some music to dance on me. That's cool too.
Right.
I'm cool with it. If the beat is fat, I'm cool with it. There's things I don't like and I don't want to hear, but in terms of like their outside of metal influences working their way into this album, they did a great job with it. And I think that if you're interested in the metalcore or the deathcore genre and you like other music, the DJ house, dance, EDM stuff, you're going to find some of that in there. And I think for fans of that music and metal, you're really going to love Super Bloom by Silent Planet.
Nice. That's cool.
Yeah. Cool. Interesting new work.
All right. So here comes the number one album of the year. Nick and I agree on this album, so I'll tell you what I have about it.
Yeah.
And I know we've talked about these guys multiple times on this show,
Mhm.
but Cattle Decapitation Terracite. It's right here. Cool artwork. Definitely like it.
It looks like Travis Ryan on the cover.
Yeah. Yeah. Damn, Travis looking rough, buddy. But
Putting a lot of work in those vocals.
for me, in my opinion, these guys can do no wrong. I've seen other people say certain things like in our death metal community where they kind of just brush these guys off to the side, and I don't think that's fair in any opinion of that. These guys write great songs. They're technical as fuck, and it's as heavy as music gets almost. This is top-tier death metal to me. When Death Atlas came out, it literally sounded like the soundtrack to the end of the world, and I loved every second of that.
Yep.
And this picks up right where that left off. They've added a few new things each time around, a few new surprises that you wouldn't get before.
Mhm.
I think the addition of the guitar player helped on this album.
Yep.
But to me, this is album of the year, one of the best albums that I've heard probably since Death Atlas.
Okay.
And like I said, Sleep Token's number 2. this is a complete different thing than that.
You
But
gotta have variety.
I just love Cattle Decapitation, and I just love this album. It's got multiple spins, and I base my albums of the year on that, like we talked about. I think you had mentioned that earlier as well. Something that you're going to come back to multiple times.
Yeah.
That means you've caught my attention, and I want to listen to it again, because there are some albums on the list that we'll talk about in the next episode that they're going to get one spin. I'll give you my intentional listening, and after that, I don't really care if I play it again. Not that it was bad, but to make times to listen to this album again.
Yeah, right. So for me, I'm weird. Period. That could be a whole statement to unpack.
That's that's our part 3 of this episode.
Let me come back to that. I'm weird in my listening habits.
Okay.
So if a band has got great albums, right, already established, I become super anxious about what they're gonna give me next.
Okay.
And Cattle Decapitation is that band for me, because we've got the 2 prior albums that I'm familiar with coming up with them, and I know they got more work, but the 2 prior to Terracite are the ones that I know, and I absolutely love those so much, to the point where I'm worried that I was worried that I was going to get like a watered down version of these 2 albums. Like, just not necessarily say that they're mailing it in, but how can they fucking outdo themselves? God damn, they did it. They did it.
Yeah.
The addition of the guitarist might help changing the format, giving more depth, but it's not that. It's not solely that.
Yeah.
It's the fact that they are so good at what they do, and they can just push the whole genre forward. They're not even thinking about that. I'm sure they're just in the room writing the best music that they can, and this is what you get. Terracite is, Cattle Decapitation is a hard band name to say. People don't want to say, oh, Cattle Decapitation. That's pretty brutal, man.
Yeah.
Rotting Christ. Jesus, man. Like, it's right up there. It's so offensive, but I fucking love it.
Yeah.
Make people uncomfortable. Make people sit there and enjoy something that they're not comfortable with. And just...
That's death metal, baby.
Yeah, man. That's what we're here to do, is shake it up. I mean, Terracite was so good. The pace was just a little bit faster than mid-pace.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, my mid-pace is breakdowny to them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're just faster in ways. Their style is so original to me. I don't even know that they're blending genres so much in and out of like black metal, death metal, and all this, but Cattle Decapitation is the front runner in metal, in my opinion. They carry the flag. They are the #1 metal, death metal band, whatever. If it has the word metal attached to it, it's Cattle Decapitation first. Everybody else is a nice, awesome, smooth second. Good going. There's just not enough good to say about it. I love Travis Ryan's vocals. It feels like there's new vocals on here again.
Mm-hmm.
Like he found a new voice to deliver. The musicianship, S tier. I mean, the songwriting, beautiful. Like it's got structure.
Yep.
And it goes places. There's a lot of atmosphere. There's a lot of musicality. And I don't know that they rely too much on the production in terms of background sound. Or other instrumentation. It just felt like a wall that these guys could make with 5 guys, and not relying too much on outside instrumentation or piped in sounds. So, I think the last song is the one. The last 2 songs really got me. Is Just Another Body. I fucking love that song. Such a good song. Once you listen to this whole album, then you get to the last song. Perfect. I fucking love it. I mean, album of the year, sure. We sit here and talk for 90 minutes. We could have talked about that album for 90 minutes.
Yeah, for sure.
And their body of work. I can't. Another band I can't wait to see. Haven't had the chance to. So just waiting for them to come around at a time that it makes sense for me to get out of the house and go. But Terracite.
I seen them at that venue that we just seen Dies at.
Oh yeah! Wow. So that's that's a small room.
Yeah.
For them.
But yeah, great album. Like I said, these guys can do no wrong.
Yeah.
They carry the flag.
Yeah.
They push the envelope.
Yeah.
It's heavy as shit.
Oh God.
It's just a bulldozer of an album.
Yeah.
There's groove on there that you
Yep.
can bang your head.
Mm-hmm.
There's grind on there that's not so overwhelming, but it just lets you know that death metal is here and
Yeah.
we're here to fucking stay.
Oh yeah.
And we're not going anywhere.
No.
And I agree with you that it doesn't really get any better than this. Everything's subjective.
Sure.
But when it comes to death metal and extreme metal,
yeah,
it's these guys and then
everybody
whoever else.
Yep.
And the technicality on this album is far beyond almost everything else. But what makes a difference from some of these other technical death metal bands that I had mentioned earlier on my list, these guys are writing good songs too. They're writing stuff that sticks in your head, grooves that stick in your head. They just know what to do.
Yeah.
They're just good at it.
Yeah. Their main songwriter has got his style so refined. He can just probably write songs all day, every day, it feels like, and keep coming up with a good riff for the next Cattle Decapitation song or album. Like, he's not going to repeat himself, or if he's building on his own influences and his own style, he's at least able to come forward with riffs that are exciting and fresh still. I don't see any falling off for this band. I was nervous about this album. I was like, there's no fucking way they can outdo Death Atlas.
Yeah.
Stop. Just stop. Like go out on a high note.
Right,
Start a new band, because how the fuck can you top that? And then they come out with this, and I'm like, now I'm thinking, there's no fucking way they can top this. How can you top this?
Yeah.
But I'm sure they can, because they continuously do that. And I think if they get to a point where they felt like whatever they're working on isn't better than what they've done in the past, then they will do just that. They will move on to other career fields or something else. But for a band that is as consistent as they are in their sound, what's even more flattering is how consistently good they are and how much better they get every step of the way.
Yep.
I remember listening to them so many years ago.
Like on Humanure, like all the way back then,
Just driving to band practices, throw on the new Cattle Decap, and a lot of times when I don't know something, I might just tune out. I'm not familiar. But I remember when you guys were introducing me to this band, that is one of the few things that really stuck out to me. I was like, what is this, Jay? I kept asking, like, what do we got on? And you tell me, and I'd be like, I gotta have it. Like, I just have to have my own copy. I remember back in the day, we'd ride around all the time. We would not necessarily buy the same albums.
Right.
We would just share them, basically, and dupe them for each other. But, now it ain't like that. I gotta have my own. I gotta have it. And I went out and I got Anthropocene Extinction.
Yep.
And
That's a
then
great album.
waited on Death Atlas. And then when Death Atlas came out, it was, wow, this is as good or better than the last one. And then now Terracite, I kind of waited on it. I'm weird. Don't look to me to buy something day one anymore.
Right.
I'm like, I gotta like think about things. Like I said, my listening habits are a little bit different. I kind of have to psych myself up for something and or talk myself down from something. Like, it's okay if it's not as good as it. Their old
Right.
stuff.
Just, take it for what it is.
Yeah, you're a fan. Just go out and get it and listen to it and
Yep.
form an opinion before you've even listened to it. Forming an opinion is no good. So I listened to it. Absolutely love it. They are the number one metal band in the world for me. There's a lot of great bands out there.
Oh, yeah.
So many, but I need to. It feels like we need to sit here and sing their praises, because I want everybody else to feel the same, because I want to see Cattle Decapitation on a bigger stage with better live sounding production that they deserve. And I want the show to be as big as it can be for a death metal show. I want it to be the biggest death metal show I can get. And I know these guys probably, I don't know them personally. I have a feeling that they'd just be happy to go into a club and play for 200 people.
Yeah,
They don't care.
It's their art, man.
They're good at it, and it's not like their goals are probably just to put out good albums and good music, and they've done just that. I absolutely love it. Those are my albums of the year, Jay.
Mine too.
I mean, those are the ones that I will give numerous listens going forward. I'm so excited for some of these bands already to come through town, or even give me another album or EP. Give me a new single. We thought about this B-side, didn't make it. Anything from these bands, I'm willing to now, day one, go out and get, because I have listened to these albums so many times already that I'm ready for more. I know there's a lot of other albums that came out this year, Jay, and we could probably speak until the sun goes down.
Yeah, we'll do I think what we're going to do is we'll end this episode. We'll wrap it up. It's already been kind of a long one.
Mm-hmm.
And then we'll just do a part 2 talking about music in 2023, extreme music.
Yeah.
And we can mention some of the EPs, and we can mention some of the other albums that we listened to, because maybe they didn't make top 10.
Sure.
That was the whole point of basically kind of our top 10 list of the things that we really like this year. But we have a lot more music to talk about that came out in 2023. So with that being said, you got anything else, Mod?
Man, what a good year for music. Thank you for, giving us all time to talk about the music that came out this year, because there's a lot of good stuff. So you guys and gals out there, give us your feedback. I think that's the only thing I want to add, because there's so many albums that we didn't listen to or even talk about.
Yep.
So if there's something we didn't talk about today, please drop it in the comments so that we know to give it a chance and share the wealth with everyone else. So
And
that's-
be mindful that part 2 is coming out, so you'll have to listen to that one as well, and then maybe we'll mention what you guys are thinking on there. So with
Yeah.
that being said, thank you guys so much for checking out the long episode, and keep it metal. Peace. Thank you so much for checking out the episode. Be sure to hit that like button and give us a share.
Yeah, and if you enjoyed our podcast today, please give it a rating on your streaming service to help us gain some exposure.
And if you really enjoyed the show, please give us a follow or hit that subscribe button and come hang out with us every week. And remember, keep it metal.